to vegan.
Testing. I've never spoken into a microphone before, so what's up? Hi everybody, I'm super glad you're here. Yay. Lots of people I know, lots of people I don't know. This is going to be a super casual, fun, chill talk about veganism, so yeah, let's just get to know a little bit about our panelists first. If you want to just do a short little introduction and then...
Hi guys, my name is Jenn Williams and I am local, I'm from Boise. What do? I'm a health coach and trainer. I teach fitness classes and super passionate about veganism and teaching everybody about that lifestyle. I host a webpage and social media account, This Is How You Vegan, very similar to Kristen's, which is How to Vegan, and that just happened. And
we didn't even know.
No, it was great. So yeah, that's me.
I'm Megan Stahl. I am marketing director of Foodfort Music Fest. And yeah, that's me. I don't have my phone. I see some of my team here. So my phone, I've never not had my phone at Foodfort for an hour. So this is a treat.
Hello everyone, my name is Kevin Scrima, and I am a personal trainer here in the Boise area. I run my own personal training business, so that is about it. Much like everybody else, not very exciting. So that's it.
And I'm Kristen Pound. I am the host and the producer of the How to Vegan podcast, and I also have a YouTube channel that is focused on veganism and eco-conscious living, and also really healthy, delicious, plant-based, aka vegan recipes. So that's a little bit about what I do and why I'm up here today. So I think a good way to kind of start off with all of this is just to make sure everybody's on the same page and just define the word vegan and the word veganism. So the definition of vegan, for those of you who don't know, is someone who doesn't eat or use any animal products whatsoever. And the definition of veganism is a way of life which seeks to exclude, as far as possible and practical, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for clothing, for food, or any other purpose. So in dietary terms, vegans don't eat meat, animal milks, poultry, fish, honey, or any of their derivatives. But veganism really is more than diet. It's more than about what you eat. Vegans generally don't wear leather, fur, wool, or silk. And they are against rodeos, circuses, animal testing, any other industry that really exploits or abuses animals. So that's a little bit about the definition of veganism and the word vegan, just to make sure everyone's on the same page, because I'm sure some people aren't 100% aware. So now that we kind of know what the word means, I'm curious, how many of you out here are vegan? Consider yourselves to be vegan. Take a look around, because it's kind of interesting. So okay, there's a good chunk of people. Nice. What about vegetarian? Any vegetarians out there? Nice. Cool. Sweet. I like it. How about anybody that's like either been vegetarian or vegan before, or has dabbled in it, or is at least interested in reducing the consumption of animal products themselves? Have some people interested in that? Cool. So yay, that's awesome. So now that I know kind of a little bit more about where we are on that, I kind of was wondering how many people who are vegan would come. So that's good to know. So I think a really good way to kind of get to know our panelists a little bit better is to just talk a little bit about our vegan story, kind of why we're vegan. So yeah, let's dive into that, and then we'll kind of get into the juicy part. But I think that's just a good way to kind of get to know everybody. Everybody's vegan story is usually really different. Sometimes it's really exciting, sometimes it's not. But I think there's so many avenues into veganism. There's so many ways that people get drawn into it that I think it's really fun to hear people's vegan stories. So let's hear it. Who wants to start?
Sure.
You go, Kevin.
Okay, everybody. So I'm starting because mine's the least exciting. So just know that right off the bat. I went vegan because my wife was vegan before me for about a year and some change. So I've been doing it for, I'm going to say about 8 years. I don't know. Anyway, so she was vegan. I supported her, went through all that stuff, and then haven't been in the fitness industry for the better part of a decade. My concern when she went vegan was, you know, the protein bit through my own ignorance and everything like that. But you know, how we do this thing healthily. And so I support her, let her do her thing, and then realized that, you know, what she's doing wasn't sustainable, wasn't really working, to no fault of her own. But, so I was trying to find a way to make it work for me. And rather than, you know, just try to make her change or do anything different like that, I said, how can I incorporate that into my life? And so I came across the Engine 2 diet. If any of you guys have ever come across that, very cool. Rib Esselstyn, the Esselstyn families, like the vegan superheroes. But, so that's how I got into it, and I've been doing it ever since, and now we have a little guy, so almost a 4-year-old, so we're a vegan family, and all that fun stuff, so that's my story.
I guess I'll go next, just because of the order, the flow here, yeah. I've been a vegan since 2017. Previously, I was eating everything. I grew up eating everything, and I never was a big fan of, like, red meat. I was told later it was because my dad overcooked it, but I don't know if that's really the case. However, when I guess in 2008, I moved to Boise and became a pescatarian, mostly because I wanted to stop ordering chicken at every meal. It was just kind of like out of like food boredom, and but it really got me interested in like creating and liking different vegetables, and as well as some fish at the time. But then I found myself kind of like becoming a lazy pescatarian and eating like tuna fish out of a can and grilled cheeses. And I was like, whoa, this isn't really working. And again, just getting like, remembering that food can be fun and interesting and not just so boring all the time. And I think that's when I became vegan in 2017 was mostly, I mean, a lot, that's like where it started, and then obviously caring for animals and the planet has been a big thing for me my entire life, so it's just added bonus, I guess, for me.
I love your guys' stories. My vegan journey started probably just well beyond, or well before the time that I went vegan. I was living in Australia for several years, and that's kind of when I took that first step. But I would say 5 years before this, you guys, I was thinking about it. It was on my heart, but like many people, I think I just avoided the information. I wouldn't watch the video, I wouldn't do the research, but it was there. I don't remember if there was an event or anything that happened, but one day it was just really heavy on my heart, and I went home, pulled up some videos, started doing the research, and I committed to doing, you know, I said, at the time I was bodybuilding too, so very much on what I call a bro diet, and a lot of animal-based protein. So I committed to doing 2 days a week, and I did the first day. I felt amazing, so I was like, I'm just gonna keep this going. So I kept going and never looked back. I do want to say that I was vegetarian at the time. I would say I was still consuming a little bit of eggs. It wasn't until a year later that I finally decided to eliminate everything. But I think it was a great journey for me because I learned a lot about food. I found this joy in cooking, and it also gave me, well, increased the amount of grace that I had for myself and other people. We have to remember that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and so when I say that this was years in the making, it really was, and these changes don't happen overnight, so yeah.
I like that. So how long have you been vegan then? How long
So, since 2017 as well.
Yep, cool, sweet. I love hearing everyone's vegan stories. I wish we could pass this around in here. So my little vegan story. So ever since I was really little, from the time I can remember, I could not stand watching any form of animal suffering, whether it was the Discovery Channel and the natural order of things, and my parents like, this is just normal life. It's like, I can't take it. Or Homeward Bound when they're stuck down in that mud pit. I was just sobbing. I was like, never gonna watch that movie again. Like, people are watching this and they're okay with this? But I never made the connection that what I was eating when I sat down to eat was really the dismembered corpse of a once living being, or the secretions of a once living being that really wanted to live. I did not make the connection at all, which I think is really normal. There's a huge disconnect for most people, just sitting down and not realizing really what you're eating. So I had a huge love for animals, but I never made the connection until fast forward, so about 8 or 9 years ago, my really good friend Sarah Payton, right over there, she had been vegetarian since high school and was just really inspiring to me, and something about it resonated. I don't know if she recommended that I do it, I can't even really remember, but I just felt compelled to be vegetarian. It just felt like something that really aligned with my values. So I went vegetarian. I was a vegetarian for about a year, and then we went on this really fun girls' road trip to Portland and stayed with another friend, really good friend of ours, and her roommate was vegan. And I remember we ordered a bunch of pizzas, and I was all like, oh, mine doesn't have meat, feels so good. And she got one without cheese on it. She's like, oh, I'm vegan. And I remember saying to her, like, oh my God, I could never go vegan. Like, I probably was rude. I mean, I think I was probably rude. Cheese is amazing. Like, what are you talking? I don't even understand. Okay, well, that's weird. But I thought she was cool. She was like, cool little hipster Portland girl. And something sparked something in me. Like, something made me feel a little excited, even though at the time I don't think I realized it. Fast forward, like, less than a month later, this guy that I'd been hanging out with, I kind of forced him to watch Forks Over Knives with me. I saw it on Netflix and I was like, we should watch this together. Like, oh, let's test it out and see. So we watched it, and before the end of the documentary, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be vegan. There's so much in there, whether it's the environment, ethical reasons, which I'm an ethical vegan all the way. I'm all about the animals. And I just knew I was gonna be vegan ever since. And so literally from that day on, I've been vegan ever since. That guy that I was like kind of interested in at the time who watched it with me is my husband now, back there manning the camera. And he, as soon as that movie was over and I was like, I'm gonna be vegan, he was like, if you're gonna do it, I'm gonna do it too. And if it's that important to you, I'm gonna do it and support you. And we weren't even dating at the time, and I was like, okay, so I guess I like this guy. So we've been vegan 7.5 years, and it's been the best decision of my life. I love it for so many reasons, and I now devote my life to spreading the vegan message, and that's why I'm up here today. So that's kind of my little vegan story. I could go on and on, but that's kind of my little journey into how I got here. So the title of this talk is Save the Planet, Go Vegan. And we're gonna be talking about the environment today because it's a huge issue. But the planet isn't just the environment and the ecosystems and all of that. It's all of the inhabitants on the planet, whether they're animal or non-animal. So we are gonna be talking about all aspects of veganism today. Ethical, health, environmental. We will be doing a little Q&A session at the end, so keep that in mind if you have questions about anything. It doesn't have to be geared toward the environment or climate or anything, although that's awesome. But I do think that starting this off talking about the environment is kind of a good way to get into it, because it's a huge pressing issue. Climate change is huge. Something needs to be done, and very quickly, and veganism is something that can really, really, really help. Things are bad. Things are getting really bad really quickly. I have my notes here. So I'm gonna hit you guys with some pretty staggering statistics, so kind of buckle up. I wasn't gonna include this in the portion in this talk because statistics can kind of be boring sometimes, but I didn't know if it would come out in our conversation, and some of this stuff is stuff that I just think people need to be aware of. So raising animals for food produces more greenhouse gas emissions than cars, trains, planes, automobiles, all forms of transportation combined. More greenhouse gases. In fact, the diets of meat eaters create 7 times more greenhouse gas emissions than the diets of vegans. 7 times. It's a huge amount. And not just the climate, but water use. Water use is another issue that's really pressing right now, and nearly half of the water used in the United States goes to raising animals for food. Half of the water. which is a lot. So to put it in perspective, because again, the lovely panel before us, statistics can be kind of hard to grasp. So to kind of put it in perspective, you'd actually save more water by not eating 1 pound of meat than you would by not showering for 6 months. That's how much water it takes to make 1 pound of meat. So it really is, I mean, yeah, when you put it in perspective like that, you're like, oh shit. People trying to like, not to reduce their showers to 5 minutes, and I mean, that's great. Every little thing helps. But once you realize how impactful not eating meat and consuming animal products really is for the environment, it's kind of hard to turn away and to not see that. That's why I kind of wanted to let you guys know about some of this stuff. Another thing is the production of grain and land use. So not just the land to house the animals, but there is so much land that is being used to grow the grain and other crops to feed these animals, which are essentially the middleman. I mean, we're getting the nutrients from the plants they're eating, and so they're the middle animal, essentially. And the amount of grain required in meat production alone is just a huge contributor to climate change, deforestation, habitat loss, species extinction, because we're just plowing down rainforests to make room for the animals and for the food to feed the animals. In the US, 70% of the grain grown is fed to farm animals. So 70% of all of the grain grown is fed to animals, when we could be feeding that to people. There's billions of people hungry in the world, and we're taking this food that animals could be, or that humans could be eating, and giving it to animals. Another, this is a huge one for me. Raising animals for food uses 30% of the Earth's land mass. 30%. I remember realizing that and I was like, wow, it's almost the size of Asia. So to house the animals, to raise, for all the grains, and bigger than the surface of the moon, just for animal agriculture, which is not good for people to eat animals, and it's not good, clearly, for the environment, nor for the poor little animals who really just want to live, just like us. So now that we've got some of those kind of statistics out of the way, I just wanted to make sure, because some of those are kind of big and important things to kind of know about. I didn't know about it for a long time, and now that I do, it's hard to unknow those things.
And putting it like into perspective.
Putting into perspective.
Like the 1 pound of meat for 6 months of not showering, that's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I mean, just knowing that is like, wow, it's so impactful. And if you guys haven't watched Forks Over Knives or What the Health or Cowspiracy, there are so many amazing documentaries that you can watch on this, and you can really educate yourself. And that's what I did. Once I watched Forks Over Knives, I went to the library and I checked out every single vegan cookbook and every single vegan book, stacks on stacks, and read them all, and I watched all the documentaries, and it just really immersed myself in it. So remember that ignorance is not bliss, that we have a responsibility as humans to take care of our planet and all of the creatures that live on it. So keep that in mind. Do some education, do your research. It's really important. So I'm curious, how big of a role did the environment play for you guys in your decision to go vegan or stay vegan?
I mean, it's like an ongoing thing, I think. You know, it's like, and like learning more about it, it's like education for myself. Like, yeah, I've always like loved our Mother Earth, you know, I've always cared for her. I used to have, even in middle school, I had like my neighborhood friends, and I would get together, we'd have a reduce, reuse, recycle, like meeting every week, so cheesy.
Oh, I love that.
And it was so nerdy. Like in the attic, you know, it was really hot in the summer, it was a really bad decision on placement. But yeah, it's always been a part of my life. You know, I think we all, like, you know, give a shit about our earth and want to continue to live here and be able to breathe outside. So, yeah.
Yeah, for me, initially, it was ethical reasons, but as many of you can probably attest to as well, is that it becomes about everything else too. So it definitely, largely has to do with the environment now as well. I recently had the opportunity to go learn how to scuba dive, and it gave me this insight into this whole world, right, that we, that many of us probably haven't seen before. And so I was swimming next to things I'd only ever seen on the Discovery Channel, and seeing these big, huge, beautiful coral reefs, and it gave me that exposure, that awareness, that knowledge that I didn't have. And so earlier when I mentioned that it's a marathon, not a sprint, is that we are constantly learning, we're constantly evolving, and I think it's just so important for us to heighten our exposure to these different aspects of veganism, of the environment, of this world, to give us that motivation and that inspiration to keep doing the work that we do. So.
What about you, Kevin?
Well, to be honest, I played absolutely zero
Yeah,
in it. I did it for health reasons, and then kind of got into everything else. So when you start off that way, and then you start learning about everything else and how it impacts everything across the board, and now, I don't know if any of you guys are parents or whatever, but you start thinking about generations upon generations. We all say that shit, but none of us actually grasp what that means. And so you can make a huge impact by just making a small dietary change that really doesn't impact anybody other than yourself, but for future generations, you're making all the difference in the world, all the way around the world. So that's all I got.
Yeah, and I do think that having kids and thinking about that, like I'm at an age now where I'm really excited to start a family, and it's scary. I know a lot of people that say, I don't want to have kids. The earth's probably not even going to be here for them, so why would I do that? And it is scary. But yeah, I just think that it's important to think about future generations. Human beings are really selfish a lot of the times. But to think like, well, are my kids gonna have a planet? Are my grandkids gonna have an earth where, yeah, like Megan said, you can go outside and breathe? Because at the rate we're going, no. The oceans are being just completely destroyed. The air, it's just declining really quickly. And something needs to be done, and whether that's just going vegan completely or reducing your animal consumption, I think it's beneficial no matter what it is. Because the environment desperately needs our help, and it needs people to kind of spread information about it as well. So, and I'm kind of the same way. I did not go vegan for the environment. Like my friend Sarah, like that's what she was all about, and I knew that it was an issue, but I was totally like, oh, I'm vegan for the animals. So, but now it is definitely so high up there for me. It is. Again, the more you just immerse yourself and you learn so much, you're like these things you just learn, and it's just like you have to do something about it. It's, at least I feel called to do something about it too. So another thing that I think that we should start talking about is just how do you get your protein? I think that's a really common question. If anybody out here is vegan, I bet you've been asked that. How do you get your protein? How do you get your calcium? How do you get your everything you need? Which I think is a question that it's legit. People are like, well, how do I fuel my body? Is this actually okay? So let's just talk a little bit about health side of things. So how do you get your protein? You can even run us through a typical day of eating if you'd like. I think that could be kind of helpful. I think people a lot of times are like, well, what in the hell do you eat? Like, what in the shit, dude? Like, no, the best things ever. So we can kind of start talking about health aspect and kind of, yeah, just start off like, where do you get your protein for people who are unaware? Plants.
Who knew?
That is the
protein. Answer. And it's not from an animal. It's wild. I mean, I'm not much, I'm probably, the more I'm on this panel, the more I'm thinking I'm a really bad vegan. Because I really don't, you guys also are really into health. So that's not one of my things I'm into as much. So I feel like that it's a little different. I'm not like thinking about my food all the time, other than just like, is there something vegan? But a lot of it requires meal planning. And you guys both have some really awesome meal planning tips and like what's in your kitchen. I honestly follow these two on Instagram and copy what they do. That is my meal planning.
That will work. That will work. So yeah, Megan doesn't, Megan's one of my really good friends, and yeah, you're not as focused on the health aspect of things, but I think the three of us definitely are, so yeah, but I really like the variation in people up here. So let's hear Jen's take on protein and health. I know.
This elusive thing, Well, it's funny when we look at the history of eating for so long. They start marketing this to us when we're young, right? We associate protein to meat, calcium, milk makes your bones strong. So we have this idea, this belief that has been conditioned in us for a very, very, very long time. And so it gets really confusing confusing when we talk about eliminating those things, because where are you going to get them? We don't have a lot of education in nutrition and health in general, and so it's what is a protein? What is protein? It's branched chain amino acids, which are found in everything. Meat, yes, contains the entire profile, but all other products, produce, fruits, vegetables, beans, legumes contain them as well. They might not contain the entire amino profile, but you know what? As long as you're eating a variety of foods, that's what I always preach to people. Eat a variety of foods, make your plate as colorful as possible. You're going to.
She's really good at it. Seriously, follow her on Instagram.
I'm always like, what can I add in, to make this as vibrant as possible, because that's what's giving us life. So everything, as long as you're maintaining variety, you are getting protein, you're getting the nutrients that you need. We can kind of talk about supplementation too in this. As a female, I supplement things like iron and B12 because I'm just not going to get enough of that in my diet. Actually, after being vegan for about a year, 2 years, I got my entire blood panel checked and everything was perfect. I was a little bit low in iron though, so I had been a little bit lax on my supplementation with that, so I just increased it a bit, and I think that's testament to show that you can get everything that you need as long as you're maintaining that variety.
Okay, so this comes up to me weekly from clients and people, everybody's around everywhere. And I always kind of go off with this. It's just like we're a nation of being overfed and undernourished, so why the hell are we worried about how much protein we're getting? Right? We consume calories.
Nobody's ever been deficient in protein.
Right?
Yeah,
that's not
exactly.
And anyway, but and then you look, like you were saying about what protein is. It's just amino acids that come together. Everything has it. Your body knows how to work, right? You don't think about breathing, you don't think about digesting, you don't think about anything. Your body's got it under control. So quit trying to cop out on that and just eat the damn food and let your body take care of the rest. That's kind of my simple look on that one. But as far as food goes, we are very simple. We're like the rice, beans, greens family. So we just kind of do it that way. And it's like the cheapest, easiest thing you do. You throw it together, you eat it, you bam, that's it. So that is it. I have never had somebody that I tell them to worry about their protein intake because most people are way up here anyway. But if it makes you feel good, and when you're looking at your macronutrients, your protein, carb, fat, if one of those makes you feel better, then you do that. So it's whatever works for you on an individual level, not whatever, I don't know, whatever health line or whatever the hell any of those things say. It's what works best for you, because you're the one that at the end of the day has to make the choices. So that's my easy way of making out of that.
I think that is a really good point that you brought up, is that every single person's body is completely different. And finding out what works best for you. So if you're interested in going vegan and you leave this talk and you're like, I'm really going to try it out and check out our Instagrams and some recipes and all that stuff. But just remember that what makes me feel good might not make you feel great. And that you might have to do some experimentation. Some people might need to supplement with iron, some people might not. Some people, so it really is, I'm really glad you brought that up because everybody is so different. And just taking it easy on yourself if you're gonna decide to transition to veganism, and just knowing that there might be some bumps in the road, but that, yeah, everybody's different. And I think that's I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that I think when I was taking one-on-one clients, everybody wants the quick fix solution. Tell me exactly what to eat. And it's like, well, that's not really gonna work because I can eat all of the bread in the world and I'm fine, but I have friends who cannot and that they feel awful. So just keep that in mind if you're gonna transition to a vegan diet, or even if you already are, or whatever you're eating, just listen to your body. Your body really does know what's up, but that everybody's really different, for sure. So, another question, or another answer to that question, just how do you get your protein? Another simple one is, well, I get it from the same thing that the animals are getting it from. How do the animals get their protein? From the plants. And again, we can just cut out that middleman, and we don't have to have an animal that is bred, that is really just raised and born only to be killed for food. It's just not good karma for our planet. It's not good for anything. It's not good for your body. Like Kevin kind of touched on, excess protein is not good for your body. It is not good. It's toxic for your body, especially animal protein, especially super concentrated animal protein like eggs, which is essentially just an entire baby in a little nugget is what I was going to say, but that's not right. In a little shell. That was the right word. So I don't know where I was going with that, but I don't know what I was saying. So anyway, that happens to me a lot. I kind of have a bad memory. Another thing that I really wanted to talk about, though, is dining out. Because I think a lot of people, like, oh, I want to go vegan, but what do you even eat? Especially here in Boise. We don't have a vegan restaurant. We have some people that definitely are making strides to be there for us, which is amazing. Lemon Tree Co., shout out.
Eat that, like that sandwich for breakfast this morning. They have a full vegan breakfast menu.
Yeah, which is nowhere else in Boise has like several vegan sandwich options. So for breakfast. So thanks, Lemon Tree Co. If you haven't tried their vegan breakfast yet, it's delicious. But yeah, what do you guys think, especially in Boise? Have you guys found it hard dining out?
Absolutely.
Absolutely not. See, I knew they were going to have different answers.
Well, I'm just always having to make modifications, and it's nice whenever restaurants that offer vegan straight up, not being like, hey, can I get this without the cheese, and maybe just add a little sauce on the side so it's not so dry. You know what I mean? It's like, or can I have it without the aioli and with this, and it's just a lot. And so it requires more creativity, which is also kind of exciting and fun too.
Well, and I think to help you or other people in that situation, I always look at menus before I go and I study it. I'm like, okay, I have this option, that option. I can maybe make a change here. So I'm going in ready to ask questions, to to make changes. And I think once you're in there too, like talking to them off the bat and being like, hey, and you probably do this. I'm vegan, and what can we do here? And they're Boise's great. Everybody's so helpful and excited to make those changes for you, and I see it other places too. So that's a really great tip if you're going to be eating out and you don't know what's available to you.
Right. So. That definitely is the thing. But it's fun too. Every once in a while, like
I know. I'm always like, how can I veganize?
Yeah, exactly. It's like becomes a game. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
It's true. Were you going to say something else? No. Did you have anything about dining out? Do you have any tips or struggles or anything like that? Yeah, let's hear it.
Well, study the menu, which is, that's what you were just saying, and find the places that you like. There's a lot of awesome local places that will take care of you, or just get in the car and drive your sweet ass up to Portland and eat till you want to die. That's it.
Oh my God, the vegan food in Portland is ridiculous.
It's so good. It's like it's a dream.
It's unfair.
It's really unfair.
You have to come home and you're like, really?
Really? Yeah.
It's amazing. So.
Another thing to add to that, if you're struggling to eat out as a vegan or looking to try more vegan food, go multicultural, go ethnic. A lot of ethnic food is all plant-based, and we have so many great restaurants here in Boise for you guys. And shameless plug, I just recently did an article on this on my website.
Yes, this is amazing.
Yeah, thisishowyovegan.com, and it's just highlighting all of the places in Boise that I love that are also local. You guys, you won't find a chain on there, but all local, and just a lot of great places that are offering great vegan food. So if you need ideas or recommendations, that's there for you too. So.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like just a little vegan dining.
Yeah.
What is it actually called?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember now. Best vegan bites in Boise.
Yes,
yeah.
Best vegan bites in Boise on thisishowyovegan.com. It's so helpful. So if you ever have any like friends or family coming into town, or if you yourself is like, I want to know what the vegan options are, go check that out because it is really, really, really helpful. Another thing that I wanted to bring up is money, is budget, because that's another main thing that I hear a lot is I couldn't do that. That's so expensive. Like that's just so expensive. Do you guys find that you spend more money on groceries now that you're vegan?
I don't think so. I mean, it's like I don't know. I feel like it's like whenever there's you're just buying more vegetables, so you have to buy it more often than something that's not vegetables. But I guess meat goes bad. But I guess cheese stays, right, a little bit longer.
But those things are also very expensive too.
Right, exactly. So it's like I didn't really see a change in my
stayed about the same for you.
Totally, yeah.
What about you?
Oh yeah, I don't spend nearly as much as what I used to on food, and now that the weather's getting nicer, we have market stands up so you guys can get really affordable produce, but it gets expensive when you're trying a lot of pre-packaged vegan foods, right? So, you know, the burgers, the sausages, the cheeses, all of that, those are very expensive, and you probably will see an influx, but, you know, shopping at the markets, buying in bulk saves a lot of money as well. And like you were touching on earlier, is you know, eating vegan can be very basic. So a lot of rice and beans and produce, and those are the cheapest things in our diets. I hate that word, cheap. Most affordable. Yes.
Inexpensive.
Inexpensive. Yes.
What about you, Kevin? Do you have any input on this?
Well,
vegan family too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you have a family.
So we don't spend any more. We do feed our child, so just so you know, we don't spend any more than we used to. So like everybody's budget is different. So expensive is different to every single person in this room. But you know, for a family of 3 with an almost 4-year-old that eats everything in the world, we're only dropping about $75 a week is what we budget, and then spend about $4,000. But you know, it's really cheap. We go bulk on damn near everything when we can. So Trader Joe's and Winco will help you out a ton. And then when all the fruit stands are open up, they're cheap when you know how to shop it. If you're going frozen, you're doing whatever you're doing on that stuff, it's not expensive. And most of the time when I tell people how much I spend, they're, you know, like that's their 2 days or so. And so we're able to have more than enough food, and yeah.
Well, and the other thing when we're talking about food budgeting is that I never have a problem spending more money on fresh produce, high quality ingredients, especially because it reduced my healthcare costs. So I actually recently got sick about a month ago, and that was the first time I've been sick in 3 years. So when we're looking at the cost of healthcare, doctor's visits, medication, time off work, all of that adds up, and your cost is significantly higher. So I don't have a problem, even if I had to, spending a little bit extra on vegan food, and you know, like I said, buying organic, because it is actually saving me so much more money.
I should have said that.
Yeah.
That was a better answer. Another thing that when you focus on trying to reduce your grocery bill, or if you're just focused on that in general, is that you'll end up eating a lot of whole plant-based foods instead of processed foods, like Jen kind of touched on. So you're feeding your body the most healthy things that it can. Whole foods is what your body wants. It doesn't want processed chemical shit. That's not good. So, I mean, really, like, kind of a day of eating, just so you guys, anybody wondering out there, I'll kind of have like a smoothie in the morning, and I load that thing up with all the superfoods in the world. Lots of fruits and vegetables and seeds and turmeric and spirulina and all that stuff. So I like to have that in the morning. And then I'll usually go to the gym and come home, and I'll usually have a bowl of oatmeal because I love oatmeal so much. Either hot or cold, kind of depends on the weather. And then I'll snack throughout the day if I'm hungry. If I'm not, I don't eat. I really listen to my body. And then for dinner, I just try to make it like Jen's food, as colorful as possible. If you're eating a wide variety of whole plant-based foods, you will be getting the nutrients that you need for the most part. Again, everybody's different, so there's certain circumstances. But yeah, I mean, rice, quinoa, sweet potatoes, kale, cucumbers, tomatoes, just a whole bowl, kind of, I mean, people call them Buddha bowls or Nourish bowls. That's typically what I eat for dinner or for lunch, and it kind of sounds like, I mean, rice, beans, greens. I mean, that is so good for you, and it is so cheap. Pennies, really, for your meals, which is really nice. So I can tell that we spend a lot less than, or I spend a lot less than I ever did before I was vegan. Mostly also because I'm focused on my health, and I really want to eat whole foods because it makes me feel so much better. And that stuff is cheap. It's so cheap. So I think that that's another kind of good thing to bring up, is that if you are worried about budgeting, that if you're gonna be eating healthy whole foods, then for the most part you're not gonna have to be spending a lot of money, which I think a lot of people get kind of hung up on, is, oh my gosh, it's gonna be expensive, when really it's the opposite. At least I've found. So
on that, one thing that I hear a lot of people is kind of associate veganism with organic everything, right? and go organic and support as much as you can when you can, and then go conventional when you need to. And that will cut down the costs, because if you're not, like, there's no benefit to you from going organic or nothing, right? So if you're like, okay, well, I can't afford organic salad mix, so I'm going to go to McDonald's. Like, it doesn't do a damn thing for you. So you go where you can and make the cuts where you can and figure out how to make it work. That's a big part of how we do it too, and that's.
Yeah, and it's different for everybody, and finding out what works for you and your family and what you guys like to eat. And again, it can just kind of be an experiment, and but it's really fun. Like Megan kind of touched on, I think it was you that said, or maybe about that you're more creative in the kitchen, you enjoy cooking more. My mom's vegan. She's been vegan for, I think she went vegan like the same time you did, Megan. And she used to hate cooking. Like growing up, it was literally just like standard American diet. Like it wasn't awful, but she didn't care. It was just like, I don't want to do this. She said before, if she could take a pill to get her nutrients, she would, instead of eating, which is the opposite of me. I would eat until I couldn't anymore if I had the opportunity. I love food. So I, again, forgot what I was just saying. What was I talking about? Help me. Oh yeah, she's really creative in the kitchen now. She loves, you guys, I have a really bad memory. It happens to me all the time, just talking and then just gone. Just like, okay. And I normally do YouTube videos or podcasts, so I can just pause the camera or just start over, so it's a little different in front of people, so forgive me. But she loves cooking now. Like she maybe doesn't love it, but she enjoys it because she's like, oh, your dad wants this, so I found a vegan version of that, and it's amazing, and he loved it too, so we're just gonna have that from now on. And so it's really, I think, a good way to kind of, it's so fun to find new things to eat and to not just focus on having a piece of meat and some rice and some greens. It's just so much, you can be so much more creative, and there's thousands of plants out there, thousands of plants, and a few animals. So why not eat all the healthy plants and kind of let those animals live? Something else that I think, before we kind of dive into Q&A, that I want to talk about, and because this can kind of touch on everything, is, so why not just stop at like vegetarianism or pescatarianism? Like, why did you decide, and why are you full vegan? Just tell me some of the reasons that really keep you vegan.
I'll start because nobody else wants to.
Thanks, Kevin.
So for me personally, it's like one of those things where if you could go further, why the hell wouldn't you? And we all know, so I'm not, like, unlike, I do focus on the ethical side of everything, but it's not my main motivation, right? So I'll just say that. I know it's going to take my vegan card away, but I'm okay with it. Thank you. But wherever I was going with that one, so you got me all with that, I'll throw my card away. Where was that?
I'll take over.
You'll remember. Once she starts, you'll remember. Oh wait, what were we? Oh, why not go further? Why vegan? Why not just stop at vegetarianism?
Let's pretend like that didn't happen. So let's just restart that one. You guys good with that? Okay.
She threw you off.
So anyway, you can go further, and going back to the ethical side is what I was looking at. When you're still supporting dairy and all that stuff, I mean, the animals are still dying. They're still being exploited. People are still being exploited. No, most people do veganism because of the animals, but what about all the people that are getting paid shit wages and terrible conditions and all those things? So it's like, it's the best thing you can do. So if you can go that far, why wouldn't you just go a little bit further? Like if you're out going for a run, you're not going to stop at like, I'm at almost at a mile. You're going to be like, oh, let's just finish that up, right? You're not going to like get out of your car when you're driving somewhere and like, I'll walk the rest, right? You can just go the whole way. So that's why. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
That was great.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm all or nothing kind of gal, but yeah, that's all I got. All or nothing, and I honestly believe in just causing the least amount of harm possible while we were here. And obviously, veganism expands into to other things. I don't know if any of you were here earlier listening to the chat about reducing waste, but learning ways to not only cause the least amount of harm possible, in a dietary aspect, but also in that aspect as well. So that's my belief system.
Yeah, I also feel like, watching some of the documentaries that you were listing off earlier, and like knowing that this, and going back to marketing too, it's like, we've been taught this. lights. Like even in the dairy aisle, the lights are brighter to make the milk look whiter because that's appealing, because that's what you've been taught, right? And it's like milk, first of all, isn't white, even like it shouldn't be. That's kind of creepy. But even like, you know, like, and falling into this like scam almost, it made me feel like a chump, and I was like, well, like, I'm gonna prove them wrong, you know? And I'm in marketing, you guys. So like, and it's the marketing that's like, you know, like beef is good for your health, or like all this stuff, like this, like just bullshit.
Just lies. Just straight up lies, exactly, to make money.
Yeah.
And being aware of that is really, really important too. And going vegan really opened up my eyes to a lot of different things. It just makes you realize, like, wait, what else am I being lied to about?
Yeah,
it is a scam.
Bamboozled. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll show them.
Which is scary, the healthcare industry. I mean, there's so many things that it's just like, wait a minute. What is the information that I've been given my whole life, is that true? And so it really has made me dive into and do my own research about everything, which I think has been really helpful, because it's, especially when you're little, you just trust what your parents and what the food pyramid says. You don't think that that's, you know, you don't question it. So yeah, I think that, for me going vegan and staying vegan, like I said, is all about the animals. And I wasn't aware of the horrors of the dairy farms and the egg industry at all. I knew that to get meat, you had to kill an animal. I knew that, which is why I first went vegetarian, because I was like, I don't want to deal with that. But when I watched all those other documentaries and seeing baby cows ripped away from their mothers just minutes after they're born, I'm a super empathetic person. I'm a Cancer, for any astrology people out there. I'm super empathetic. And I can just feel the pain. So seeing the mama cows scream out for their babies and vice versa, just, I cannot contribute to that. And same thing in like the egg industry. Knowing that baby male chicks are ground up alive or suffocated in plastic bags, left to die, just tossed aside like garbage while they're alive because they're of no use in the egg industry. I just cannot contribute to that. And let alone all of the health benefits, all the environmental benefits. But for me, anytime right after I went vegan, it was like, oh yeah, it doesn't mean you're not gonna want cheese or you're not gonna want that stuff anymore. But for me, just remembering, would I want my baby ripped away from me? Over and over and over again. It's not just once. In order for a cow to produce milk, they have to be pregnant, which I don't think a lot of people realize. So they're artificially inseminated, usually in horrible, horrible ways. Really just taking advantage of the reproductive system of female cows, which I consider myself a feminist, so I would not be okay with anybody doing that to me or to any of my women friends. So just having my eyes open to those things was really just, anytime I was like, oh, you know, this piece of pizza has some cheese on it, it's okay, or maybe I'll just eat it with the cheese on it. Just those images coming back into my head of the horrors that happen in the animal agriculture and the factory farms is so, if anybody's seen footage, it's so awful. And if you haven't, please do. I know it's awful, but do it.
Didn't you post a video recently? One of y'all did, it was like, if you can't watch this, then you should not be eating.
This is why you should.
This is why you,
And a lot of people will say that, like, no, don't show me that video. I don't want to know what happens. Well, then you shouldn't be eating it. If you want to, what I always say to people is educate yourself. Figure out everything, know what happens to these animals, watch the videos, know about the environment, know what it's doing, the awful effects it's having on your body. Heart disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes, stroke, all of that is all really brought about by lifestyle and diet, and all that can be, you know, reversed or avoided by eating a plant-based diet. So that's really why I've stayed vegan, is just those things, knowing those things are out there, and I just personally can't contribute to it. So educate yourself, and if you decide after all of that you're still like, I still don't care, I want to eat animals, that is totally up to you. I'm not here to tell everybody be vegan, but educate yourselves. And I think this is a good first step for all of you who are new to this to kind of know what it's all about. Did you have something?
Yeah, no, I just don't think it's really inherently in us to contribute to that. It's interesting. I live in Eagle, and I was driving to Boise the other day, taking Hill Road. That's my favorite route, and there was a car had already hit a squirrel, but it was freshly killed, and I watched the car in front of me swerve around it to not hit it. I, of course, swerved around it to not hit it, and there was probably a line of cars behind me, 4 or 5 deep, that also swerved around the squirrel to not hit the squirrel. And I thought that that's really interesting. It's really interesting that nobody, I can guarantee none of them are probably vegan, you know, but they didn't have it in them to run over this animal that was already dead. And even if it was alive, most of us would probably swerve to not hit the squirrel, am I right? And so I just thought that was really interesting, and I spent the entire day thinking about that, is that, you know, most people could not do the act. They could not do the killing, yet they have these things on their plates.
Yeah, that is so true. Most people could not go out there and wrestle down an animal and eat it raw or whatever. So Q&A? Yeah, let's do a little Q&A. We've got about 10 minutes left. And yeah, kind of any kind of questions you guys have, raise your hand and I'll kind of point you out and I can answer, or yeah, we'll kind of answer questions as we go. So, orange shirt. Yes, orange shirt.
This is for Kevin. Tell us about tofu and estrogen.
Thank you,
good question.
Young man I've never met before. So anyway, when we're looking at that, I'm going through puberty apparently. It's funny that we're talking about estrogen and all that. But when we're looking at that, there's a big difference between phytoestrogen and mammalian estrogen, however the wording is on that one. But there's quite a big difference between those two. And phytoestrogens don't actually work in and convert that and bring up male or female. It doesn't disrupt your hormone levels the way that everybody thinks it does. So what I would recommend, if you think it does, is 1, educate yourself. 2, put it lightly, pull your head out of your ass and can. But the third part of that, there you go. But hop on a resource like nutritionfacts.org. So what that is, if you guys, we all know it, and most of you guys probably do too, but it's all research-based.
Peer-reviewed.
Peer-reviewed stuff, yeah, that's what it's going for. So, I mean, and it just shows you as to why it's wrong and what it means and all that fun stuff. And, okay. Anyway, but it's the reason why those studies are out there and the information's out there like that, that's saying that it's bad for you, is because a lot of people will lose a lot of money from that. Right? We're a consumer society, and so by going against that, somebody has a lot to lose, so you have to look at it that way. And then you also look at the societies around the world, so being, you know, Asian cultures that consume a lot of soy-based products, which is we in this country are like, no, it's estrogen. They're all fine, you know, and so they live longer than us, they have better quality of life and all that fun stuff. So if somebody's telling you not to do something in that regard, there's a pretty damn good chance that you should be doing it, or you should at the very least be educating yourself as to why they say that. So.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, in the back.
How do you make sure your plants are not coming from exploited farm workers?
She said, how do you make sure that your plants aren't coming from exploited farm workers?
That's something that I definitely can improve upon, for sure. But there's definitely, it's really hard because you're wanting to do the best you can in every aspect. And that, like I said, that's definitely something that I want to improve upon. For me, I really focus on trying to eat organic as much as possible because I don't want any farm workers dealing with those chemicals and pesticides. So that's something that I personally have started doing to kind of really focus on that. Buying local, buying seasonal, going to the market, knowing who's growing your food, talking to them about it, asking, you know, what they use, if they're using any chemicals, pesticides, anything. Just really kind of diving in. And again, with all of this, it's just getting in and doing the work and asking the questions. The studies that you're reading, go down to the bottom, look who funded those studies. A lot of that stuff can be really deceiving. So, but it's a really good question because that's something that's really important. For me, those are the things that I'm doing. Does anyone have anything else they want to add?
I would say take personal responsibility and grow your own food. That's a good way to start too.
That is a really good addition.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you're at grocery stores or, you know, our local markets here, it'll tell you where that produce came from, but you know, you also have to look into whether it came from here or California, or what those laws are there, and looking to where you know, that specific item came from. So it does just take a lot of due diligence.
Yeah, that really is. It's just digging in and doing the research and figuring out what sounds good to you. Yeah. So she's asking about being vegan and eating seasonally and locally.
I got nothing on that.
Well, I mean, throughout the year, you know, we have access to different you know, fruits and vegetables and produce. So I kind of follow the seasons as well, and just try to do the best I can with a variety at that time. But look, at the end of the day, if my you know, if my body is needing or wanting something that is coming from another area that is also good for me, I will still consume that. But obviously, my first priority is supporting local, and yeah, that's how
and I think being aware of what is seasonal. There's amazing references and charts online that's like, oh, seasonal winter and for your area. And I have that printed off and it's on my fridge, and it's like, oh, I don't think I have it on my fridge, but I used to. And it's like, this is what's seasonal in wintertime, and then you can, you know, focus on buying that stuff during that time of the year, which can be really helpful. And it's something that is really, really important to be focused on. So I'm super excited for the market to open. So much more fruit and vegetables. And sometimes, I mean, the more I try to do that, winter time isn't as fun maybe seeming, but the more you experiment with squash and pumpkin, I mean, all of that stuff, you can make delicious vegan meals out of local and seasonal produce for the most part. But like Jen said, there's definitely going to be times where you can't source everything that way, but being conscious about it, I think, is really important. So thanks for bringing that up. Alex?
Yeah, I think that doesn't depend on really what you eat. I mean, if you eat milk, cheese, dairy, I mean, that's gonna, I mean, no matter what you eat, I think that we all kind of need to be aware of where our food, you know, was grown, where it was killed, you know, whatever. I think that no matter what you're eating, I get asked that a lot, but it doesn't really matter. So I think that we all, you know, kind of be more aware, and as the demand for plants goes up, I feel like there will be more farms and stuff that are more nearby that, you know, they may convert from, you know, cow and pig over to more plant-based stuff too. So I think that'll take time as well, but as the demand goes up, then it'll be, you know, pretty as well.
That's so true. Thanks for that. Yeah.
I have a statement and actually a question to ask. I'm a survivor of cancer, prostate cancer, about a year ago, and I'm kind of making a lot of shifts right now in my diet all of a sudden, and kind of subconsciously, I'm almost a vegan, I'm almost vegetarian. You know, I've been eating meat my whole life, and kind of taking that out of my diet almost subconsciously. I take the sugar out of my diet, I take the white bread and grains a lot out of my diet, and all this kind of stuff, and all of a sudden, in about a month and a half, I probably lost about 15 pounds. I mean,
nice job.
A year ago,
that's really awesome.
Yeah. And trying to, you know, well, anyway, that's because you know, hearing you talk really opened my eyes. And it's all these subconscious. And about cancer, they talk about cancer that much. Where are we getting it? Why are so many people diseased and have cancer? I have friends that have gone through breast cancer, and they have the R2 virus or whatever it is, so makes them more susceptible. A very good friend of mine, she is just like changed her diet. You know, all vegetarian, all no meat, no sugar, all that kind of stuff. I guess one of the statements that I wanted to ask, so the questions was on Radio Boise, I heard a podcast and we were talking about veganism and vegetarianism. Have you ever done the 30-item challenge today? I've heard about it, where you eat 30 different vegetables or foods or whatever. It's kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
To say, I have eaten 30 different types of plants in one day.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it, is get a huge, wide variety. And bringing up cancer, I mean, yeah, that's changing your diet and lifestyle is huge. I've known so many people with stories like you that suffer from cancer, diabetes, obesity, whatever it is, and change their diet, change their lifestyle, even if it's not fully vegan, fully vegetarian, and make huge changes and improvements in their life and enjoy their life so much more, and it's a longer, meaningful life. So yeah, we didn't touch on disease a whole lot, but oh man, a plant-based diet is incredible for your body.
You touched on it a little bit. My healthcare costs are next.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing your story with us.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. That's awesome. Maybe one more question? Yeah.
So I've been vegan for a few years, and my 15-year-old daughter is as well, and we both eat shit all the time. So what have you guys been teased, and what is the best response when people give you crap?
Oh, good question. Vegan shaming is a thing. No, vegan shaming is a thing, and this is something that I've wanted to talk about to people, so I'm really glad that you brought that up. But, you know, for me, I always take a gentle approach, you guys. I'm not the one sharing the videos, and, you know, like, I believe that we can't force people into change. Nobody ever makes any change when you back them into a corner. They end up fighting, and that it's not productive or conducive to anything. So I tend to just, you know, always lead by example. So when I meet that hostility, I hear people out. I'm never the one to bring up that I'm vegan. People bring it up to me. But I always take the gentle approach, and I kind of bring to light that you're almost shaming somebody for being compassionate, or being kind. And that usually brings up another discussion, and it usually softens the room a little bit, or that engagement. So that's how I like to handle it.
I was just going to say that in my personal experience, it's usually coming from somebody else's kind of ignorance, if you will, and that might be too harsh a way of putting it, but it's they're afraid that I feel like that you are doing something that's making a positive change for you, and it's different. And so it's one of those things that when I'm doing it, like I would say 90% of the people that I know don't know how I eat, because I don't announce it. It's what I do for me, right? And then when they give me shit for it, it's also one of my favorite things, because I'm like, that's why I'm still vegan, because it makes you really mad for no reason. Like that's one of my favorite parts of it. But just like what you were saying, is just setting a positive example for it, and coming from a place of just like, well, I'm doing what I'm doing, so, you know, what is it about this that scares you? So having a talk with them, right? Like being able to, because if you know what you're doing, right, when they are kind of coming up against you and being aggressive with it, you can answer their questions, get their insecurities right out there on the table. And if that's not your personality type, don't try it. But it's like, you can just talk to them, right? Because all it is a conversation. Any person in this room has had a weird conversation with somebody that they have nothing about, and then they walk away saying, oh, well, I was a piece of shit before, wasn't I? You know, like, so they have no idea, and so it's just, really, it's insecurities and just getting at them and saying, hey, this is why I do it, and if you don't like it, not yours, pal. So, that's me.
Don't say that.
No, I just think it opens up a conversation, like you were saying. Like, I think that's, and it teaches people how to become vegan. You know, it's like it opens up a conversation. So I think it's kind of cool, actually, when people give you shit.
And being, I mean, the first couple of years, noticeably it was harder. The longer you're vegan and the more you gather information and feel confident in your answers, the easier it gets when you know how to answer each question that you're getting from people. I have a video on my YouTube channel, which is Kristen Pound is my YouTube channel if anybody wants to scope it out. And it's called How to Deal with Non-Vegans, especially seeing them eat meat in front of you. So if anybody's interested in that, it kind of touches on that, because it's difficult. You get teased a lot, people give you shit. It's not typical, and when you're doing something that is outside of the norm, people push back a lot. So that's a really good question. I'm glad you brought that up. So I think that's it. I think that's all the questions we have today.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. This is so much fun. You guys are amazing. If you want to find us on Instagram and all of our socials, go to the Facebook event for this Foodfort talk and go to the description section, and you can find our websites and our Instagrams and all that stuff. I did want to say I have an ebook on my website. It's the Healthy Vegan Starter Kit. It's typically $5, I am doing a promo for anybody that wants it in here for free. So if you go onto my website, kristenpound.com, and just type in the promo code GOVEGAN, it'll just be free. There's a bunch of recipes, 2 weeks of meal plans, grocery shopping lists to go with, and everything. So if anybody needs a jumping off point, go grab that. Again, just GOVEGAN is the code. Hit me up if you need it. Go follow all of these amazing people. And thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, guys.
You guys are awesome.
Happy Tree
Happy Tree